Best Bites Forever.
Hi everyone, welcome to Best Bites Forever. My name is Alicia and I am just really excited to share today's video with you because today I am collaborating with Albert over at Spain on a Fork, and we're making paella, which obviously is a traditional Spanish dish, so I'm really excited to be, collaborating with a Mediterranean and Spanish cooking channel. I just think it's super cool, and I was really excited too to work with Albert because when I contacted him and I was like, hey, do you want to collaborate with me and make some paella? He said, I'm actually putting up a paella video next week, but I know hundreds of versions of paella, which I think is amazing. I definitely don't know hundreds of versions of paella, and I'm completely impressed that he does. And I am really, really excited to watch his video and, and learn something new, like learn another paella recipe. Yay! So anyway, I'm going to leave a link to Albert's channel down below in the description. And like I said, it's Spanish and Mediterranean food. He usually makes very simple dishes that are done in just a few minutes, and they just look like they are packed with flavor. And I know you're going to love his channel, so please do make sure that you go over there after you watch this video and subscribe while you're there. Subscribe while you're here if you're not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and get started.
I'm going to start off here by setting up my paella pan. Notice that it has fairly shallow slanted sides and it's a really flat pan. I've also added in 3 or 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and I want to let that get fairly hot. The next thing that I'm adding in is my shallots and my garlic. Some people don't prefer to put onions or shallots into their paella, but I do like shallots in mine, so you can leave them out. They are totally optional. I also added in a little bit of kosher salt. And I'm just going to sweat my shallots. That means that I'm basically going to stir them around in my pan until they start to look translucent. So once my shallots look like this, they are ready for me to add the chorizo in. The chorizo that I'm using here is Spanish. It's not a Mexican chorizo, and they are very different from each other. The Spanish chorizo doesn't have any heat to it. It's not spicy at all. So I'm going to kind of flatten this out, and normally I would let it sit in here until it got like a nice brown color on the meat, but unfortunately this pan that I got, and I actually got this pan specifically for this video because normally I just do this in a heavy bottom shallow pan, but I wanted to have a paella pan for the video. But this pan is pretty thin, so it's getting some hot spots and I don't want anything to burn, so I'm going to move on at this point. If you do have a heavier pan, you can get a little bit of color on the meat. But I'm going to go ahead and add in my wine, and I added in about a cup. I didn't measure it, and it was just like a cheap dry white wine. Don't use your good wine for cooking. The next thing that I'm doing is adding in my saffron, and of course I'm going to use a Spanish saffron here. It comes in a little jar like this, and it's usually in a little envelope also to protect its flavor and to keep it from losing flavor, because saffron is a fairly expensive spice, and unfortunately there are a lot of fake saffrons going around out there that you can purchase, which is very unfortunate. I do have a video that shows how to tell if your saffron is real. So the amount that I'm using here is quite a bit, and if this is your first time making this, you might want to use about half as much so that it doesn't overpower the dish for you. I love saffron, so this amount is perfect for me. Notice the color on my fingers. That marigold kind of color is a good sign that you are using real saffron. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this into my mixture. And I want to reduce my wine down by about half. So once my wine is nice and reduced, I'm going to add in some seafood stock. This is a 32-ounce container, and of course if you want to make some homemade seafood stock out of your shrimp shells or whatever like that, then go for it, but I'm using this today. And that's me pretending like I'm adding tomatoes in there because I forgot to film it, but I added in between 1/4 and 1/2 of a cup of crushed tomatoes. I did them on my box grater. So the rice that I'm adding in is called bomba rice. This is a Spanish style of rice, and it's really important for this dish because it absorbs way more liquid than a typical rice does. So by absorbing more liquid, it's obviously going to have more flavor. You don't want to stir this, even though you see me stirring it here, but I'm going to give it one stir, and I am not going to stir it again through the whole rest of this recipe. That is extremely important. So this is the type of rice that I used. If you can't get this, arborio is a really good substitute for it, but I will leave a link down in the description to the one that I used. The next thing that I'm adding in is just a small amount of smoked paprika. If you're able to do this in the more traditional method where you actually put it onto an open flame with the wood underneath it so that it picks up a smoky flavor, then you don't need to add the smoked paprika in, but I'm doing this on my stovetop and I still want that smoky flavor. I'm also going to add in a couple of teaspoons of kosher salt. So there's 1, there's 2. Again, I am not going to stir this, I just tossed it in. When the liquid gets down to the rice about this far, or even a little bit further, but I'm cool with here, it's time to start adding in the seafood. So what I have here is 16 extra jumbo shrimp. Extra jumbo comes 16 to 20 shrimp per pound, and colossal come 15 per pound. So you could definitely go with colossal shrimp for this, but use one of the bigger shrimps because you don't want them to overcook in the dish. I'm also adding in some mussels. These are farm-raised mussels, so I'm not worried about getting sand or grit out of them, but my husband was kind enough to debeard them for me. The clams that I'm using are quahogs, and these are middlenecks. So middlenecks come 8 to 10 to a pound. You could also use little necks, which come 10 to 12 to a pound, or top necks, which is the next size up from middlenecks, and comes 5 to 7 per pound. I think middlenecks are pretty much perfect for this. They're not too big, they're not too small, and also they were what my store was selling, so that worked out perfectly. Continue adding your clams and your mussels in a nice neat little pattern until you get all of them in there, keeping in mind that the rice is going to cook up around them. Next, I'm adding in some roasted red peppers. Normally I would roast these myself, but in this particular case I decided to try these out of a jar because I was a little bit short on time. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that tiny little teaspoon of the red pepper juice in there too. After that, I'm going to put a nice little foil tent over top of my pan. I'm going to use 2 pieces of foil so that I make sure it's covered right. This is going to cook for about 25 minutes on low until all of the liquid has been absorbed by the rice, and I have a little bit of caramelization on the bottom of the pan, just a tiny little bit, which Puerto Ricans call pigal, and I can't think of what it's called in Spanish, but I'm going to look it up and put it in text on the screen. And this is what you're going to end up with.
Hi again everyone, thank you so much for watching my video. Please give it a like and a thumbs up or whatever you want to call it, and share it with all of your friends because sharing is caring. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and click on the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified when I put up more videos. Also, please make sure that you go check out Albert's channel, Spain on a Fork. He has some really fabulous recipes over there waiting for you. Thank you for joining me today, and happy cooking, everyone. Bye!
bestbitesforever.com